The Trump administration has not hesitated to target attorneys and judges it perceives as critics or potential enemies. Not surprisingly, they've also targeted some of the top law firms across the country by issuing executive orders punishing them for either A, having diversity in their hiring practices, or B, hiring attorneys that were involved in the numerous prior investigations and prosecutions against him. So, how are these law firms responding to these sanctions? Which ones are caving and which ones are fighting back? Join me in a legal deep dive into the Trump administration's legal warfare against the top law firms across the country. What's good, people? Well, Machiavelli will be proud to know this president is executing the strategies laid out in The Prince. Now, just in case you have no idea what I'm talking about, Machiavelli was a political philosopher who wrote a book called The Prince, which laid out strategies for kings to stay in power and defeat their enemies. And honestly, the fact that I remember all that is proof that I did not sleep through my political science classes when I was at Boston University. Now, anyway, President Trump has issued a flurry of executive orders punishing the top law firms in the country for different reasons, involving hiring attorneys that worked on prior investigations and prosecutions involving Trump, or have hiring practices that involve diversity, which go against the current goals of his administration. So we're going to look at some of those law firms, what was done to them, how they responded, and what I think are some very dangerous ramifications. Now let's start with some of the law firms that decided they were going to stand up, fight this executive order, and refuse to be bullied. First, let's start with the law firm of WilmerHale. Their sin was hiring attorney Robert Mueller, who was a special prosecutor against Trump during the Russia investigation. They also represent illegal immigrants and have hiring practices that include diversity. As a result, President Trump ordered the federal government to stop working with the law firm and terminated all federal contracts with that firm. As part of his executive order, he also limited that law firm's attorneys access to federal buildings around the country. The reason given for the executive order was the law firm's representation of cases that are against American interests. Now, in response, this law firm refused to be bullied. They actually filed a federal lawsuit challenging Trump's executive order. The result was a federal judge invalidating several parts of the order, saying the order and the conduct was retaliatory. Next, let's look at the law firm of Jenner Block. This firm committed the offense of hiring attorney Andrew Weissman, who worked with Robert Mueller during the Russia investigation. Now, although this firm didn't have any government contracts that Trump could cancel, he issued an order restricting this law firm's attorneys from access to all federal buildings around the country. This law firm also put up a fight, filed an action, and got substantial parts of the order invalidated. Now, the law firm of Susman Godfrey is actually an interesting case. Now, this law firm never actually did anything involved against Trump directly. However, this law firm represents Dominion Voting Systems, a voting machine company that sued Fox News for $780 billion for perpetuating false allegations that their voting machines were rigged. Again, Trump canceled all of that firm's government contracts and restricted the access of all their attorneys to federal buildings across the country. This firm successfully got the order invalidated, and the judge that ruled in their favor stated that this action by Trump was based on a personal vendetta and a shocking abuse of power. In fact, another 500 combined law firms have filed legal papers with the court indicating these executive orders are a grave threat to our legal system. Now, several law firms chose not to fight and channeled the inner Roberto Duran and said, "No mas." For those of you who don't know who Roberto Duran is, he was a world-class boxer who famously, in a fight against Sugar Ray Leonard in the 1980s, at the end of the round, waved his hand to the referee and said, "No mas." meaning he quits, no more. First, let's talk about the law firm of Paul Weiss. This firm committed the sin of hiring an attorney that worked on the Trump case involving the finances involved in the Stormy Daniels situation. This firm was sanctioned by Trump by having all of their national security clearances revoked for any federal work they did, and also limited access to federal buildings on the part of their attorneys. This firm caved. In order to get back in business, this firm publicly acknowledged that the attorney working on the investigation against Trump acted improperly, and also agreed to donate $40 million in free legal services to causes supported by President Trump. Now, the firm of Doug Emhoff was involved in the January 6th investigation into Trump's conduct. They were similarly targeted with similar sanctions. To get back in business, this firm agreed to provide the Trump administration with $100 million in free legal services to causes supported by President Trump. In fact, multiple large law firms across the country have agreed to dismantle all attempts at having diversity in their law firm and provide the Trump administration with hundreds of million dollars in free legal services. I'm going to call it like I see it. President Trump, in bullying multiple major law firms across the country to give him hundreds of millions of dollars in free legal services, allows him to create his own private legal army. Such an army will be on standby to do his bidding. Having these firms at his beck and call will give him the resources to reshape our legal system from an independent branch of our government to a kangaroo court that serves as a rubber stamp to his administration in their action, which has the danger of leading to unchecked abuses of power by the government. So, do you think a president should use executive power to target law firms that handle cases that contradict the presidential agenda? Should these firms stand up for themselves and fight these orders, or wave their hands and say, no mas? Do me a favor, post your comments and call it like you see it. That's it.
Well, that's all I got, but I do appreciate you taking the time to join me on this legal deep dive. I think it's always fun to discuss these topics, tell you what I think, and get your feedback. I would really appreciate it if you took the time to like the video, subscribe to the podcast, and also I'd appreciate you sending me your comments so we can discuss the topics you want to hear about. That's it.